How much of morality, in your view, do we inherit from evolution? For example, it seems to me that our moral intuitions regarding a relationship between a parent and a child are shaped partly by the fact that we tend, as mammals, only to have children in small numbers. Hypothetically, if we were to meet a race of aliens who'd evolved from something like squids or frogs that just dump out offspring in large numbers and leave them to fend for themselves, it seems like they'd harbor very different ethical intuitions about the prospect of raising children. Well, this is a very good question. And yeah, I fully agree with what is implied here. Much of what seems morally salient to us and important, much of what we find disgusting or laudatory in the behavior of other people, this is purely provincial in biological terms. I think it was E.O. Wilson who once said that if termites were as intelligent as we are, they would think it was extraordinarily important morally and politically to exchange feces with one another upon greeting. Something like that. I forgot the details of termite behavior he was using there, but point taken. But you can still ask the deeper question, which is really what I view as the foundation of morality, is that given the contingent facts of any particular biology, what states of well-being are available, both individually and collectively? How good can life be given that your brain is the product of evolutionary changes in the primate line versus some line that moved on from frogs or squids? What states of consciousness are available? What sort of suffering is there to be avoided? And how can you avoid it? And the moment we begin to think about actually changing our neurophysiology, right, or building conscious systems in computers, then the question of what is good reduces for me to what are the best experiences available given where we are and what we are, and how can we move from where we are toward those experiences. And while there may be more than one right answer to that question, which is to say there may be multiple peaks available that we could reach, there are clearly many wrong answers. There are many valleys we can descend into that lead nowhere worth going, where people or squids or whatever we are become more and more miserable to no good purpose. And that, if we should do anything, we should avoid. So, yeah, while it's interesting descriptively to think about what is essential to us in moral terms and what is just this biological veneer that might be stripped off by changes in the brain, there's clearly a biological and a cultural level to it that we keep encountering in our lives. I mean, you can see it pretty clearly in your notion of what constitutes food. What is good to eat, right? And what disgusts you? Well, there are certain things you would be disgusted to eat, which are really no more disgusting than anything else you eat, but you have been culturally conditioned to consider these things non-food. I'm thinking of things like cats and dogs and rats. You know, I don't know that cats, dogs, and rats don't taste like chicken. Maybe there are reasons why they would be less palatable than some of the animals most people eat, but still, most of us have a visceral reaction to the idea of eating a dog or a rat, which, while it's not something that we could imagine overcoming, and we might view overcoming it as undesirable, we don't want to be comfortable eating dogs and rats. It's pretty easy to see that the wrongness of the practice is historically and culturally contingent in a way that other things about us aren't. It's perhaps a little confusing that I put dogs and rats in the same category here. I mean, you could certainly make the argument that dogs, given our history with them and their level of intelligence, pose a special problem to eat, but you might make the same argument about pigs, which are also very intelligent. In any case, there are things we don't want to eat, which other people in other cultures have eaten, and you can see that these differences don't run very deep. There are moral differences like that. Marital norms, for instance, where people from different cultures feel very strongly about certain things. And the question to which I think there really is a right answer, or answers that are more right and answers that are more wrong, is given all of the tools available to us, and given all the resultant experiences available to us, which sorts of practices lead to the most durable forms of human flourishing? And this is why not all heartfelt convictions are equivalent. I have no doubt that a father who's about to commit an honor killing of his daughter based on his belief that she has shamed him and his family, I have no doubt that such a man is convinced of the rightness of his view. But given the consequences in the world, given how limiting that view is on 100 fronts, it's not equivalent to my finding that behavior abhorrent, right? There is a more and less enlightened morality on offer here, and we have to keep finding the more enlightened one. But this presupposes that there are things that even the most enlightened of us have yet to be enlightened about. I'm not taking our current cultural norms as definitive. There are things we absolutely could be wrong about, and yet feel deeply that they should be as they are. This is my thesis on the topic of moral realism. I think it's possible to not know what you're missing. No doubt there's a wide range of human experiences and social arrangements and cultures we might build that we are all cognitively and emotionally closed to because we are apes of the sort that we are. And one thing that culture does, and one thing that the progress of human knowledge does, is give us leverage by which we can pry ourselves out of the grip of mere biology, a mere evolutionary imperative. Yes, we all as social apes are programmed to feel jealousy, say. But what's beyond jealousy? How good is a marriage based on the norm of jealousy? This is something we can get beyond through culture and conversation. And that way lies progress. And the same analysis extends to tribalism and xenophobia and everything else that is biologically contingent about us. And there's a related question here. Would an AI necessarily acquire a survival instinct if it didn't have an evolutionary history? Well, there are a few arguments that suggest it might, because any goal you give an artificial intelligence would require that it survive in order to complete it. So ensuring its survival is an instrumental goal for any other goal an intelligent system might have. There are some exceptions to this, obviously. If its goal is to faithfully execute what its human designers want, well, if its human designers want to turn it off, I suppose that could supersede its need to stay on. So people are thinking about this. How could you design a system more intelligent than ourselves that would always submit to being turned off? It's easy to see how you could fail to do this without having necessarily programmed into it a survival instinct.